So, you're looking for a tune for the Toyota GR Corolla? Before we dive in, let me give you a quick heads up. This is not a meta build. What I've built is an A700 track tool without relying on massive grippy upgrades like wings, splitters or semi-slicks. This build is for purists and drivers who just want to have pure driving fun without needing to top the leaderboards every single time. But enough with the disclaimers, let's jump right into the hardware upgrades. We start by blacking out the front and rear bumpers and adding a small roof spoiler, which, by the way, doesn't give us any adjustability. One thing I definitely skipped is the street hood. I mean, what in God's name is that? It looks so off, almost as bad as my A700 sticker I slipped onto the car. But anyway, let's stop complaining about missing visual options and move on to the next point. Now, let's talk tires and rims. I stuck with the stock tire compound but widened both the front and rear tires. You might wonder why I went with wider tires and a wider track on the front than the rear, but I'll explain the physics behind that in a bit. For the rims I chose the ADV.1 ADV 7.2 CF2. What a name! Honestly, I didn't have many options because about 95% of the rims in the menu were heavier than the stock ones. For this build, I even decided to go 1 inch bigger because it just looks much better than the stock 18-inch wheels. In the drivetrain department, I went all in, as I always do. That's a total no-brainer for me. Since the GR Corolla comes with a manual 6-speed gearbox, upgrading the clutch and transmission doesn't just shed weight and unlock adjustability, it also gives us those much needed faster shift times. A race differential is also mandatory to get the full adjustability for front, center and rear diffs. Platform and handling was another easy choice. Race brakes for full adjustability, better stopping power and lower weight. Race coilovers and interroll bars for vital chassis tuning. I also added a sport chassis reinforcement for better stiffness and a decent sport weight reduction to lose some pounds. Finally, we are adding a bit of power to land at over 400 horsepower and 500 Nm of torque. You might ask yourself why I decided against the race exhaust. There's only one reason: the sound. The race exhaust just sounds too loud and not good, whereas the sport exhaust sounds amazing. To me, it sounds like an actual TCR race car, which I absolutely love. I also wanted to increase the displacement to 2 liters, but there was simply no way to hit exactly A700 without sacrificing other essential parts. And there we have the baseline for our new Corolla track tool. Now, let me show you all the custom tuning settings, starting with the tires. As always, these are set up to target around 2.2 to 2.3 bar or 32 to 33 psi mid-race. Since the GR Corolla is all-wheel drive, setting up the transmission was smooth sailing. First gear is a bit shorter for an aggressive launch, and 6th gear is tuned so you don't have to slam into the rev limiter on long straights. The rest is just personal preference tailored to my driving style. Moving over to the alignment section, you might look at these camber values and think, what on earth is he doing? And to be honest, I don't fully knew either. The problem during my testing on the Legend Island time attack was that the outer tire got way too hot whenever I ran less camber. Plus, the car understeered like crazy and suffered from massive lift-off understeer, which I couldn't completely tune out with those other values. The toe and front caster values should be completely self-explanatory. We want some rotation in the front, stability in the rear, and high front caster values so I don't have to run even more aggressive camber. The anti-roll bars are dialed in on the softer side to provoke some oversteer. Initially I was running much stiffer ARBs in the rear, but that turned out to be a pretty bad idea. The springs are also set up to encourage those oversteer tendencies. Since the Corolla is already one of the lighter modern cars, I didn't even need to stiffen up the springs too much. Even the ride height was pretty much perfect straight out of the box. Damping was, as it always is, one of the biggest challenges of the whole build. These values were chosen to empathize the oversteer even more, without making the dampers too stiff. The expansion joint on the Legend Island bridge can still feel a bit harsh sometimes, but that's a trade-off you have to accept. Braking with the Corolla is always a tricky task. I kept locking up the brakes when running higher braking pressure, maybe due to the low weight, maybe the tire compound, or perhaps that massive front camper. I can't tell you for sure, but what I can definitely tell you is that the car now brakes beautifully into corners. You can play around so much with the braking pressure and steering angle. It's pure joy. Finally, let's wrap up the custom tune with the differential settings. Everything here is dialed in to get the car to rotate, which is always tricky with AWD vehicles. If you run lower values in the front, the car just plows forward and understeers. If you run too much, the car spins out mid-corner. So be gentle when adjusting those values yourself. I'd recommend just adding a bit more front acceleration, maybe some more rear acceleration and less deceleration. Keep the center balance right where it is. That's it for the tune. Now you're going to see the Toyota GR Corolla in action, but exclusively on Hokubu time attack. The reason why I skipped the Legend Island time attack is simply because the car isn't made for those types of tracks. On top of that, I decided against Stony Circuit because I wanted to show you in the second lap that this setup is nearly as fast in the rain as it is in the dry. That's quite unusual for me since I mostly build up setups for rear-wheel drive cars. Now, just a little hint why I'm using the pedals and not a manual gearbox. I'm not sure if it has to be like that or if it's bugged, but even with the upgrades the car revs down so slowly it ruins the whole experience. So I'm hoping for a fix in the near future. Now let me explain why I used wider front tires and a wider front track width than in the rear. The inspiration actually comes from the Audi RS3 8Y. That car comes stock with a setup exactly like this, so I decided to give it a shot. Initially I ran 255s all around with matching tire widths, but I ran into massive understeer. Swapping to the wider front was a breakthrough to fix the issue and it worked incredibly well. If you're wondering why I didn't just upgrade the rear tires as well, adding more grip and weight to the rear would just have recreated the exact same understeer problem, so a rear end that's a bit loose allows the car to rotate much better. Which is exactly what you need when driving an AWD car. But that's all for today. If you have any questions or suggestions, drop them in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I hope to see you on the next one, but until then, keep the revs up high and the weight down low.